if all you're doing is focusing on the problems that you have to solve, in some ways that is a deficit mindset, right? That's a glass half empty kind of perspective. And I
Hmm.
think that in some cases is what contributes to this sense of it doesn't matter what we do, there's always another problem kind of
Yeah.
feeling, and that can then grow and evolve into this overall sense of burnout and kind of existential dread, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's all meaningless because there's always another problem.
Great parks and healthy landscapes are the products of strong leadership. This show is dedicated to helping you become that leader. This is the Parks and Restoration Podcast. We're on a mission to help you leave a legacy of healthy ecosystems, quality parks, and future generations of people who care about the natural world. Find show notes, links, and other information on our website, parksandrestoration.com. And now, let's get to today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Parks and Restoration Podcast. I am Chris Lee, your host. Today, I am joined by Jordan DeGree, and I'm excited to have this conversation. If you've listened to any past episodes, you'll know that I've got a pretty big interest in foundations and the nonprofits that support what we do in parks and conservation. And that's what brought me to this discussion. Jordan DeGree is an entrepreneur, social innovator, artist, and comedian. Actually, just kidding about the comedian part. He's not actually a comedian, although, I don't know, he's kind of a funny guy. You read some of his content out there. Ooh, man. He's experimented with several different ventures and enjoys solving problems, creating value, and helping people. He is currently the executive director of the Iowa Nonprofit Alliance, which is why we were going to have this conversation today. And the INA exists to empower nonprofits in the state to help Iowans live richer, fuller lives. Now, some additional random stats about Jordan here. He's got 3 kids, a $7 million real estate portfolio. He was awarded the Governor's Volunteer Award, has a 4.96 star host rating on Airbnb, changed his major 4 times in college. He's helped business owners create more than 100 jobs in rural communities since 2021 alone. He teaches a stained glass art class most Tuesdays and has successfully avoided joining LinkedIn. Maybe that's an avenue we should explore there a little bit. Jordan is best at helping people think outside the box and finding new opportunities to create value. This is going to be a fun conversation. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. If your audience doesn't feel like I'm crazy yet, I'm sure they will by the end of this episode.
Hang on tight, everybody. Yeah. So many things I want to dig into, but let's just go ahead and start at the employment side of things, the Iowa Nonprofit Alliance. So what is this?
Great question. Iowa Nonprofit Alliance is Iowa's statewide association for nonprofit entities. And it was founded in late 2022 by a group of forward-thinking nonprofit leaders and resource providers across the state. And when it was founded, Iowa was one of 7 states in the country that did not have a state association. So all of the other states had a state association and had some of them for decades. And so what that association does, and the purpose of the association, is really to help protect the nonprofit sector in the state of Iowa and help ensure that nonprofits have what they need: the resources, the training, the expertise, the connections, the network to do the best work that they can do in order to help the people, the communities, the things that they try and make better, that they have what they need to do in order to do that as efficiently and effectively as possible. So that's the association. It's a pretty cool gig. I get to hear every day about the work that these charitable organizations are doing out across the state, helping kids, helping the environment, helping people who are experiencing life challenges, whether it's physical or mental, people that are having some pretty big fights, right? In terms of battling addiction or battling loneliness or depression. I mean, there's so many people out there that need someone or something. And nonprofits, a lot of times, are the organizations that are stepping in to fill in the gap between what for-profit businesses can make money doing and what the government has to do in order to keep its citizens safe. There's a big range in between those two things, and
Yeah,
that's where
yeah.
you find nonprofits. So it's a great job. I love it, and we are a membership organization, and we have members from all across the state in all different, we call them subsectors of the nonprofit sector. So
Okay. Yeah. So
wonderful.
what's the size of your membership base roughly?
Yeah, right now we have about 200 members participating in the network. We have increased membership between 10 and 15% each year since our founding. I took the role that I'm in November of 2025, and it's July of 2026. So just about 8 months ago, 9 months ago, maybe. And we revamped a lot of stuff. We revamped our membership website. We revamped our programming, our member benefits, and our goal is really, and thank goodness, the Iowa Nonprofit Alliance Board of Directors is a really smart, forward-thinking group of people. Our goal is really to help foster connections across the state between nonprofit professionals and help them talk about the issues that are important to them in a faster, more effective way. Because Iowa's is not the biggest state in the country, but it's a pretty big state. I just drove across it the other day. I'm from Dubuque. We had
Okay.
an event in Council Bluffs, so I was all
Oh,
the way across,
man,
river
you
to
got can't
river.
get any farther than that. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, it was a beautiful drive, and what it made me think about was the idea that it can take a long time sometimes for ideas to travel across the state, especially if organizations are working on things that are new or innovative, or they're experimenting with things that all of a sudden they are creating a ton of value for their organization. We want to be the conduit through which those stories and those ideas can make their way across the state and impact more people fast.
Yeah. Okay. So is the focus on the nonprofit professional or is it on the volunteer? Because I understand that, in the nonprofits that I'm involved with, the couple different wildlife organizations and a local foundation and different things, you've got the professional staff, the people that are actually hired by the entity. They're on a payroll, and they're paid daily to do the work of the nonprofit. And then you have the other end, the unpaid people that are oftentimes the lifeblood of some of these nonprofits. Where does INA step in? What's, I guess maybe the better question is like, what's your bread and butter? Are you focused kind of on the professionals or on volunteers or both to some degree, and how?
That's a great question. I would say both, just because as you look at the nonprofit landscape in the state of Iowa, which, by the way, nonprofits in the state employ 1 in 9 Iowans. So if you're in a room of
What?
people and there's 18 people in that room, statistically, probably two of them are employed in the nonprofit sector. And
Wow.
so, in terms of economic impact, uh, it's one of the largest private sector. I think it's the third largest private sector employer in the
Smokes.
entire state. And so a lot of people are directly engaged in being a nonprofit professional, a paid
Yeah.
employee of a nonprofit organization. However, in order for an organization to be successful, it can't only have high quality paid staff. It also has to have high quality board of directors, which are volunteers. It has to have,
Yeah.
in a lot of cases, a volunteer program. You may not even have any paid staff. In the case of several tens of thousands of organizations in the state of Iowa, they don't have a
Yep.
paid staff. It's a volunteer led, volunteer driven effort. And so, as an association, if we want to speak to, help, and protect nonprofits in the state of Iowa, we have to be looking at both sides of that coin, because not only can we have training and professional development that's geared toward helping those paid staff members do what they need to do better, but we also need to have tools that help volunteer driven organizations or individuals who volunteer in the sector to be more informed and to be better advocates for the work that they're doing, and to be able to help spread the good news about the
Yeah.
impact that they're creating, whether it's, creating really high quality places for people to go enjoy the outdoors, or helping to fill a childcare gap in their community, or put food on the table for families that are struggling to get
Yeah.
the correct nutrition.
Yep. Yeah. And that, so that gets me to thinking, in my experience with nonprofits, and both as a volunteer in various capacities, um, and then in working with nonprofits and working with paid staff in those nonprofits and stuff, one of the things that I often see is rampant burnout. Like we go into these things and we're mission driven, right? Like we're going in there, we're trying to make a big difference in whatever it is. I get, just last year, I gave a talk at it was the Iowa Community Action Association. And that was one of the big things that came up I saw on the agenda was, burnout and this, just the, I can't think of the term of it, but it's that wearing down of compassion, that compassion fatigue. You're helping people, these underserved people every day, and oftentimes it's a thankless role. And whether it's community action or whether it's environmental or it's conservation, you're a member of a friends group for a parks department, and you're doing these volunteer projects and you're putting new roofs on shelter houses and stuff, and the department administrator says, hey, thanks, and then like the budget time rolls around for that department and they take a budget cut, and it's just like, God, now we're going to have more projects to do because they can't afford to do them. And it's an erosion of that compassion and that desire. How do you combat that? That's one of the biggest things I've been struggling with lately. Is I see it, like I lead my local Pheasants Forever chapter, and we have it like we are burned out. We've been putting on this amazing banquet for years and years and years and years, but it seems like the reward isn't there so much anymore, and it feels like a second job. How do you combat that? What success stories have you seen, or what best practices, or whatever it is? I mean, what recommendations would you have for folks, whether they're a chapter of a conservation nonprofit organization, or an employee of a big statewide or national nonprofit?
Yes. Thanks for laying that.
I know, right? Yeah, it's the $1 billion question. Because if you have the answer to it, like we're all gonna vote for Jordan DeGree for the next whatever you want to run for.
Yeah. I'm going to run for the non-elected office because that's a thankless job. I think it is a big question, and I don't have the silver bullet, I don't think.
Yeah, nobody does.
But I had an interesting experience just last week. We hosted a half day nonprofit event in Council Bluffs. As I said, I drove river to river. And the way that we started out that event was we asked folks at their tables, there were about 55 people there. So at their table of 6 to 8 folks, what organization you're from and what brought you to this work. What's the change that you're trying to create in the world by showing up every day? And I think that this is going to sound really simplistic, and I know it's not this simple, but I think this is a good starting point to thinking about burnout or compassion fatigue and how to keep ourselves a little bit maybe insulated from it. Is if all you're doing is solving problems, and I mean, if you go to my website, right, jordandegree.com, right away it says, I love solving problems.
And we're going to talk more about that here in a little bit.
Yeah. And I love it. I do. But if all you're focused on all the time is what the problems are, and nonprofits tend to get into that mindset because you're front line, you're right there, right? The problem is in front of you.
Yeah. And you exist to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if all you're doing is focusing on the problems that you have to solve, in some ways that is a deficit mindset, right? That's a glass half empty kind of perspective. And I think that in some cases is what contributes to this sense of it doesn't matter what we do, there's always another problem kind of feeling, and that can then grow and evolve into this overall sense of burnout and kind of existential dread, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's all meaningless because there's always another problem.
Yeah.
But when people talk about why they come to the work, what about their personality and their outlook on life and the world drives them to want to be in a profession or in a volunteer role where they're giving back, where they're helping people that need help, where they're helping places that need help. And then by focusing one step beyond that into, and what's the potential for change that you're creating through these efforts? If you can kind of look, the problem's right in front of you, but if you can look a little bit further down the road, or, it, you're an outdoors guy, when you're climbing a mountain in Colorado and you're up in the high atmosphere, the high altitude, and it's hard to have the energy for that step, for that step, for that step. A lot of times you're just looking right in front of you at the trail and you're
Yeah,
taking that
for
next
sure.
step, and it's hard, and you're getting tired, and you have to stop and take breathers all the time. But when you get to the summit and you're no longer having to walk, and you can kind of look out and realize what all of those little steps brought you to, which is this amazing vantage point, this amazing opportunity for this big picture perspective. That's the same thing that I think nonprofit professionals and volunteers can do, is realize that, yeah, you have to watch the trail in front of you and you have to take those little steps and solve those problems. But if you're never getting to the point where you're looking out and seeing the change that you're creating, or the change that you're trying to create, and keeping that front and center, the reason why you're climbing that mountain,
Hmm.
right? What is the summit?
Yeah.
Then I think that's where the burnout happens. But if you can think about, I do this because I want to invest in people, not profits, right? When you work for a corporation, a lot of times your effort is investing and creating
Yeah.
value at the bottom line of the company.
Yep.
But when you're in a nonprofit, your time and your energy and your capacity and your expertise, you're investing in the bottom line of people, or the
Hmm.
experiences that people can have in a place. And that's a much different thing. And when you can keep that in your purview, I think that it's easier to enjoy the problem solving and not let it have that compassion fatigue, because, yeah, the budget got cut, and yeah, we just did this project, or yeah, we're doing this fundraiser and we do it every year. Okay, but what's the outcome? What's the change that you're creating, or what's the backslide that you're preventing from
Hmm.
happening? Right? Sometimes the status quo is seen as
Yeah.
like no progress, but especially in an environment like we have now, where every little thing in the nonprofit world is a struggle and is a hard fought thing,
Yeah.
maintaining the status quo can be a victory
For sure. Yeah.
versus like falling back and not getting as much done. So
Yeah.
keeping that outcome, that positive change that you're creating, for me at least, is part of helping to prevent the burnout. And then the other part is like, if you're solving problems so that someday there's no problems to solve, it's never going to happen. So
Right.
you
Yeah.
might as
There
well
is no end
change
game.
that idea right now, that
Yeah.
you solve problems because you like the challenge of it, and because you like coming up with ideas and solutions and testing them and seeing what happens and evolving them. You don't solve problems so that someday there's no more problems, because, sorry friends, that's not life in anywhere.
That's not how it works. Yeah.
That's not, I mean, you die. That's when you stop solving problems.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that theme come up regularly, and I talk about that in my programs, is that, we're playing an infinite game here. It's just like in ecology. You go out and you manage a habitat and say, okay, I'm done. Well, it's instantly changing. Like it's a successional process. You go and you burn off a prairie. The next year that vegetation is going to be different. It's going to be thicker. And then the next year it's going to be even different. And the habitat is going to change whether you're doing anything to it or not. And so it's not like there's ever an end state. It's everything is always in a state of flux. And sometimes even just maintaining the status quo requires inputs. You're trying to maintain an early successional habitat, say in a prairie, you have to apply disturbance. You have to apply effort and energy and resources to that to maintain that. And that's kind of along your line of what you're saying, to maintaining the status quo sometimes is a win. So my question is, what does that look like in practice? We talk about celebrating the wins, or stopping at the top of the mountain and looking out and seeing the accomplishments. Let's say it's a friends group for a parks agency, and they do volunteer work, and they roof a shelter house, or they sell firewood, or whatever it is. What does the mountaintop, and pausing to look at the mountaintop, like, what does that look like in practice, and who should be tasked with making sure that when you get to the mountaintop, you're not just immediately spinning around and heading back down the trail? Yeah.
You come fully loaded.
Yeah, you
I
like
don't.
ideas, so I'm going to bring them.
Yeah, yeah, and you're rocking it. I would say that it's gonna vary, but I think that unfortunately, one of the challenges that every individual and every organization is facing is that we live in such an increasingly fast-paced world that the the time to reflect and the idea that we should reflect and that we can take a moment to take a breath, look back, look at where we are, and then pause before we maybe chart the next couple steps forward is becoming a lost art. And it just seems like more and more there's not that time for people to do that both in their personal lives, whether it's journaling or taking a walk, or I mean, there's just it's like go, 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 go.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that a lot of little things that you can do. And as an individual, there's a lot of little things you can do to help change that narrative or that path. And, you know, even just little things like every morning, send an email of gratitude to someone, right? It
Mm-hmm.
takes, and don't spend more than 2 minutes on it. It's not a novel. It's 5 sentences. Hey, last week this happened and I saw you do this, or last week I was experiencing this and you helped me out by, and just wanted to drop a note of thanks. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Little practices like that, even though it's not a lot of time, even though it's not a big comprehensive thing, it's not a strategic plan that, oh, in this strategic plan, we need to focus on reflection and
Right. Yeah.
positivity. Little things across an organization can all snowball and add up into pretty big culture changes
Yeah.
where without even having a culture change signified in your strategic plan, your
Mm-hmm.
organization is all of a sudden a place that does take time to congratulate and reflect. And,
Yeah.
that's really important. And ultimately, I think one of the best ways to prevent burnout and keep people engaged, especially in volunteer organizations, is you have to find opportunities and you have to create a culture that celebrates the relationships between people.
Mm.
And so,
Amen.
yeah. And so, because that's part of the value of being there is that you
Right.
are becoming a part of something bigger with people that are aligned around values that you share, and it creates a sense of community and people are happier in a sense of
Yep.
community. So, as an example, the Iowa Nonprofit Alliance board of directors, we just revamped our board meeting agenda format. And one of the little things that we're doing, because in an innovation session that we did about a month ago, we realized one of the things that we're uniquely positioned to do is to help foster meaningful relationships within the sector across the state of Iowa. So we said, well, but what does that look like for us in practice?
Mm-hmm.
Small things. And we
Yeah.
said, well, let's revamp the board agenda so that the first 10 minutes of every meeting are board members sharing a personal or professional highlight, something that's significant in their life. And we've done it twice now. It sets a totally different tone for the
Yep.
meeting. It
Yeah.
sets a totally different sense of togetherness for that group. It helps. This is going to sound weird. it helps break down some of like the professionalism, and it helps us all remember that we are people experiencing life in different ways who are coming together to try and create some positive change.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal because at the end of the day, that's what we actually want when we volunteer or when we're engaged with a group is we want recognition that we're people experiencing life in different ways, but that we're bringing our own unique self to the table to try and create some good in the world. And so it has been awesome. And even that, just that little thing, right? It ends up to 10 minutes a month, 120 minutes a year, 2 hours is all. And I
Yeah.
guarantee a year from now, the board and the staff is going to have such a closer bond and feel such a stronger relationship. And because of that, that's also going to then spread throughout the organization, and it's going to impact how the members feel and how the
Yeah.
members form relationships and the value that they get from their membership. And I mean, it's going to have,
Yeah.
but it's hard to predict exactly what it'll be, but it's
Yeah.
such a small change, but it's
Yeah. Oh yeah.
already
Yeah.
2 meetings in, it's created a huge difference.
Yeah. With huge ROI. And that's the thing. I like tying things back to ecological concepts. Oftentimes, as say natural resource manager or ecologist, we will apply some sort of uh, management to the landscape, but we won't ever get to see the results. You have to kind of take a little bit of a leap of faith and know that it's there. I started my career as a bobwhite quail biologist, and so I would work with these landowners and I'd prescribe these land management strategies, and I would know they would get done, but I never actually got to see the quail that were a result from that. And so the same thing here is that sometimes this 2 hour investment over the course of a year, the ROI on that isn't directly measurable. And this has always been one of the biggest thorns in my side when it comes to talking about culture, is that oftentimes the question that comes up is, well, what's the ROI? How do I measure it? And I haven't come up with a good metric. I mean, there's surveys and things you can do to measure culture, but that doesn't negate the need to focus on it. And so what I'm hearing you say here is if we want to connect people to that which is energizing and try to combat burnout, it's kind of a focus on culture. And every organization, whether it's whether you're a Pheasants Forever chapter and it's just 6 people getting together for chapter meetings and they host a banquet every year, or you're a big multi-million-dollar foundation like the Great Outdoors Foundation. I talked to Hannah Inman a while back on one of these episodes and talked about how the Great Outdoors Foundation grew from a friends group at Polk County Conservation all the way to this, multi-million-dollar statewide agency and stuff, 15 staff. And like, it doesn't matter where you are, everything has a culture. And if you focus on that and you're intentional about it, you can have some pretty big impact. And so I like hearing that. We're definitely aligned in that respect for sure.
They're going to help
So
insulate you against burnout as well, right? Because you're showing up to this group that you might not always get along, and you might not always agree on the best path forward, but you know that you're all just there because you want to see positive outcomes, and you're going to work through, the mud that occurs sometimes when you're trying to get there, and you're going to do it in a way that is uh, helps build up the culture of the group versus splinter it apart because you've invested some time and energy into fostering those relationships and helping people get to know each other. And that's, I
mhm,
think, geez, talk about for the rest of our lives and the country in general, continuing to build relationships and get to know each other so that when you have disagreement, it's not us versus them. It's us, it's the we, and we are going to talk this out, and we're going to find a path where it involves compromise. And because of that, we're probably going to end up with a better result anyway. Because if we
yeah.
just did it my way, which like in your intro, right? I have a bunch of different ventures. I'm usually the boss. And
Right.
if I wanted to, I could have it my way all the time, every time. But I learned very early on in my career that if I did that, the outcome wouldn't be as good as if I invited other people to participate and let go of some of the things that I thought were non-negotiable in order to help
Yeah.
shift my perspective, see things from other point of views, and ultimately create a richer strategy going forward
Yeah.
that included things that I couldn't see from where I was standing, right? Perspective is what you see based on where you're standing.
Yep.
And if you want to shift your perspective or see more, sometimes you have to stand in different places. And sometimes that's literal, right? You actually have to,
Yeah.
if you're talking ecology, right? You have to move through the landscape in order to observe different things happening. But sometimes it involves putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and
Yep.
looking through the world through their eyes. And you can only do that if you've built a relationship that allows you to actually, you know, take in what they're saying and feel like they have value enough that you can then think about it from their perspective. Because if you don't
Mhm.
respect someone, you're never going to really be able to see things from their perspective. And you can't respect someone until you have a relationship with them. So all these little things add up to big outcomes, big return on investment, and more importantly, better strategies, better services, better outcomes for, as a nonprofit for the people you're serving. But when you start to see that happening, not only do you feel like you have more value as a person coming to the organization, and you can see that the organization's having more impact out in the world, creating more good, all of a sudden people in your organization start to feel really good about being a part of that and showing up to do the work. And that's how, again, coming back to this idea of how do you prevent burnout, that's going to do it, or at least go a
Yeah.
long way toward delaying or reducing the amount of burnout that people feel. I mean, I love everything I do, but I'll tell you, the end of the month and the beginning of the month, when I'm doing all my reconciliations and I'm doing all my reporting and I'm submitting all my sales tax, like, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not always my favorite, but I also see that none of the other stuff that I really, really like doing, hands on, creating impact, all of that kind of stuff, that can't happen without some of those I's being dotted and the T's crossed as well.
Sure. Yeah.
But being connected to the more fun stuff and the richer stuff gives me the momentum I need to get through kind of the dreary stuff or the stuff that I maybe wouldn't do in an ideal world or would prefer not to do, but need to.
Yeah. Ready to take your leadership to the next level? Join the Next Level Leadership community at parksandrestoration.com. You'll get practical leadership insights and exclusive invitations to live meetups and trainings. Be part of the movement we're creating. Join the Next Level Leadership community at parksandrestoration.com. So the one thing that's really jumping out at me right now, though, is this idea of just having better meetings, and that could be a whole episode in itself. Maybe it will be.
My gosh, that could be a whole
right.
that could be a whole graduate degree.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah,
how to have good meetings, because not even better, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah,
most of the
meetings
meetings
suck.
out there are terrible.
Absolutely.
But they're like the go-to. They're the default when people are like, we need to get something done. What should we do? Let's meet. Right?
Right.
And that's good because it's a desire. It's an innate desire for us to like solve problems in community.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the problem is
coming together.
You come together and then it's like, okay, what are we going to do? And nobody has a plan. Nobody has a strategy for how that meeting is actually going to create results. Yeah, it could be a whole thing. And we've experimented a lot around how do you set up meetings so that several things happen, right? Because to be a good meeting, or I'm going to go out on a limb here, even a great meeting, there has to be some elements in place, right? You have to have people coming to the table with a sense of, I think, at least some sense of optimism that the meeting is going to create a result that is worthwhile.
Yeah.
Because if you don't believe that right from the get-go, you're dead weight on that
Yeah,
meeting.
exactly. Then why you even showed up. And that's where that opening 10 minutes that you talked about earlier of let's just talk about one good thing. And I do this here with my manager meetings. And I'm trying to do it now with like even just my weekly meetings is open up like, okay, let's just go around the room. Give me one good thing. Because then that kind of sets the tone. Like it could be a thing we accomplished or, a kudos to somebody or whatever, but it sets the tone of positivity from the front end. And so now we're building on what's already good. And we're going to build and do more of that versus oftentimes you just jump in meetings and you're dealing with issues and you're dealing with crises and you're focused on the negative. And so that one thing alone is going to have an impact there.
And it's a chance to practice a culture of reflection, right? Because now you've just reflected through a bunch of people's lenses, perspective.
Yes. There's that perspective thing. Yes.
Positive impact the organization is having from a bunch of different voices. And so, number one, you have to have this. And
I'm going to cut you off, but it makes me think of like, here's a leadership superpower for the person that's running the meeting or is in charge of this organization. If you pay attention to those things that get brought up. So if the same person brings up the same kind of thing each time, or there's consistent themes among the good things that people bring up, you can probably assume that that's important to them. And so now you're getting to know your people a little bit. You're getting their perspective. So talk about, fighting that burnout later on. So if you're going to highlight an accomplishment specific to what's going to resonate with a person. So that person always brings up, hey, we got this project done, and they celebrate that the project got done. Their perspective is on, accomplishments. Like, man, look at that. Like they like stepping back, like, man, we got that done. Versus others, it might be more relational. Like, man, I really liked going out and working with so-and-so, or I really liked bringing the interns up and teaching them new things. Well, now the next time you bring up something good for them, you can say, hey, man, look at how far that intern has developed this year. And that's going to resonate with them rather than just this blanket assuming that whatever you point out is going to resonate with everybody. And so you can really hone in on that perspective and find out what's going to impact the people around you by just paying attention to what it is that they say.
Yeah, that's gold right there, Chris. Absolutely. Anyone listening or watching, write that down because I agree that's, we just assume, again, it's seeing the world through other people's lenses, through other people's eyes. And that's how you start to build those strong relationships in times of good and in times of bad, because there's always that opportunity to strengthen a relationship, whether everything's peachy keen or, everything's on fire and you're just struggling to like put out the fires. It's all relationship building opportunities. So to get back to the meeting, you have to have a sense that there's going to be something accomplished out of the meeting. And then you also need to find a balance between whenever you pose a challenge or a question or a topic, right, that the meeting is going to kind of like work on. There has to be a balance, I think, between individual thought and group share. And a lot of times we forget about the individual and we just assume that everyone's good at doing that on their own. But we've experimented with some meeting types where we'll present a challenge or a topic or a question, and then nobody can talk for 2 minutes. Everybody has a Post-it pad in front of them, and they just write as many ideas or thoughts about that as they want during that 2 minutes. And then at the end of the 2 minutes, we'll go around the table and everyone reads one of their Post-its. And then we go around again and they read another one. And you start to see if there's themes. 3 out of the 5 people all mention this, this, and this, or all 5 people mention this, or, whoa, here was an outlier idea that probably wouldn't have gotten brought up if people would have just started talking. But that might be where the solution lies. And so, finding that balance between giving people time to think and reflect on what the topic is before you start sharing can really help everyone feel like they're contributing to the conversation. Even the quiet people have time to think about it, put down some ideas, and then have something to share. And it prevents people like me who love to just like raise their hand, start talking, right? Like
just throw ideas around.
Through it. Yeah. It prevents people like me from guiding the meeting toward my intended outcome, even if
Yeah.
it's subconscious from my part.
Yeah. Yep.
And it starts to give it the room a little more flatness versus hierarchy. We've done this with all sorts of different size groups. And what we find interesting is that, we'll do it with companies that you have the founder and CEO, you have the line worker, giving people that time to think on their own and then kind of create some equality in how things are shared initially
Yeah.
helps reduce the hierarchy, reduce the power structure for that meeting at least, so that the ideas become the stars, not the importance of the people saying the idea. And then ultimately after the meeting, the power structure is still the power structure. And so the leadership is going to decide what ideas to move forward with and how and when. But you also now have buy-in from more people in the room potentially to help implement that idea going forward. So that's my thing on meetings, right? You have to have a sense that it's going to accomplish something. You have to have a balance between individual thinking and group thinking. And I probably didn't say this, but I think this is probably the most important thing. You have to have some clarity around what it is that you're meeting to solve, or you're meeting
Yes.
to discuss, or you're meeting to
Yeah. Why are we even
accomplish.
here in the first place?
Yeah. And what we find is that people are really bad at framing challenges. And
Mhm.
most meetings, unless it's like a standing meeting, which, oh my gosh, that's a whole other thing.
God, yeah.
But most
Right.
meetings are geared towards solving challenges. But what we find, and we've done a lot of work on this, both internally, but also as we work with groups, is people either frame challenges way too big and they get these really then big, broad ideas out of the
Yeah.
discussion that are hard to actually like start to
Yeah.
implement
Becomes pretty
because they're too
vague with
big or
scale.
they're too broad.
Yeah.
Or they're like way too small and there's only one possible answer. And so it's the meeting itself is like an exercise of just like, I need people to rubber stamp this so I can go do it. I'm going to make
Right.
it such a small challenge that there's really only one way that we could solve it, which I already know. So I just need these people to agree with me so that I can go
Right.
do it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got to find that sweet spot, right?
Artificial buy-in. Yeah.
Yeah, where the challenge is framed in a way where it's small enough to create a, an implementable strategy, but it's big enough that you're authentically bringing people to that meeting to create new ideas or new collections of ideas that can help solve the challenge. And so it's really interesting. So I'll just give an example, right? We do some work with a major manufacturing company in
Mhm.
Iowa. They're a global company, but we work with their team of engineers pretty frequently. And they had a problem in one of their products that was like I think they said it was like a $12 million a year problem. It created $12 million worth of like after sales issues
Okay.
because of service and delay, whatever. Anyway, they wanted to lead off with how do we solve this problem?
Mm-hmm.
And we are like, that's too big.
We solved this $12 million problem.
Yeah, that's too big, right? And so we
Yeah.
said, are there different ways of thinking about what's contributing to the problem? And they said, well, yeah, and so we ended up breaking the problem down into three different challenge questions that the team that was meeting then addressed. So one was, how can technology, software, solve this problem? How can we leverage software to solve this problem? Then
Yeah.
another one was, how can we leverage design and manufacturing processes, the parts itself to solve this problem? And then the third one was, how do we involve, I forget what it was, but it was a third lens through which to look at it. And they got so many richer ideas. And ultimately, they ended up having solutions in each bucket that they combined, or that by implementing a software solution and a design solution and whatever the third one was, they ended up solving the problem. And we followed up with them like six months later, and we said, so, what happened? And they go, well, first of all, we solved the problem. And we sent 7 ideas out of this 3-hour meeting to our patent attorneys because they were so good. They're being patented now
Uh-huh.
to help us continue to not only solve this problem, but
Nice.
create
Yeah.
new opportunities. And we're like, okay, so like, the $1,000 we charged you was probably well worth it then. And they're like, oh my God.
Right. Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
framing the challenge appropriately created this. They'd been asking this same question. How do we solve this problem?
Hmm.
In the one way, and they weren't getting the answers that worked, but they kept getting the same answers. So by looking at the question and saying, how do we solve the problem from this lens, or from this lens, ultimately allowed them to make progress toward a result that they felt really good about.
Yeah. So, when you say we worked with this company, obviously you're not referring to your role with INA. What was this, or is this other role that you fill, that, does,
I don't know if
ideas
we want to go
and better
down this
meeting
rabbit hole,
structures?
Chris. This is, if people really want like to feel like, oh my God, what an idiot, you can just
Uh,
listen to all the stuff that I do in my life.
well,
So
we're gonna get into some of this.
so so that was through a nonprofit organization called Idea Bright,
Hmm.
that I founded way back in 2008. That has been going now for 18 years. Uh, I've got a great team at Idea Bright, and Idea Bright is a nonprofit that really exists to help foster creativity and innovation in order to help people and communities thrive. And so, aligned in some ways with the Iowa Nonprofit Alliance. But what's interesting about Idea Bright is that it can pick and work on problems, and it's not limited to kind of a certain type of problem. So, Idea Bright right now is working on three main issues. One is, how do we foster creativity and innovation through informal play among kids and adults? And so one of the things that Idea Bright has launched, and this is actually our longest running initiative, is a creative play center and adult art studio space in downtown Dubuque. And we have regular hours, we host field trips, we host parties and groups, but every activity within the Creative Play Center is built on best practice research for how people and kids specifically, how we build and strengthen our creativity and innovation skills
Okay.
through play-based activities. And so we have a very specific set of criteria that we use when we're designing activities, in order to research says is how you can best, most effectively foster those skills. And so that's one thing that Idea Bright does. We also have a co-working space in Dubuque. This is a way that we foster creativity and innovation among adults in their lives, right? And so helping adults who are remote workers or entrepreneurs have a high quality space and a community of people and a set of support services that help them kind of like launch and grow whatever idea or initiative they're working on. And then the third thing that we do is we have a nationwide network called the Rural Ideas Network. And this is a network that supports rural innovators across the country. And so we work in partnership. It's a member based thing, obviously, as a network. We have free memberships, we have paid memberships. They give you access to different levels of support and services. But we have individuals that sign up as members, but we also partner with economic development groups and communities and nonprofits where they become a community partner. And then everyone in their community can receive our paid membership level at no cost. And so we have thousands of members across the country. We work with a bunch of different types of groups. We have a partner in Ohio. They cover a six state region. They're a community action agency. We have uh, small rural economic development offices that we partner with. We have nonprofits that are doing co-working spaces, or are, we have partners in North Dakota and New Mexico and California and Illinois and Iowa, Wisconsin, all over the board. Um, but again, like the Iowa Nonprofit Alliance, it's a network that's geared toward helping people and ideas and innovation flow across rural communities faster and more efficiently. And most importantly, it's a place where people who are living in rural communities who have big ideas, big dreams, big visions for how they could launch a business or make their community better or start a volunteering initiative or a conservation group, they can find like-minded, innovative people in the Rural Ideas Network. Because sometimes in our small communities, unfortunately, when you have a big idea or a wild vision, sometimes it can be lonely. And
Yeah, oh, yeah.
and and if you can find other people that are like, yeah, do it, it's awesome. They did it over here. You should like learn from them and then make it your own and do your own version of it.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of momentum can really propel ideas from just remaining ideas or be the difference to how an idea actually becomes something that's creating value in a community or in someone's life. And so we do that. I'll just go through the list. How about that? I have a coffee shop I own where I'm kind of doing some experiments in how to bring people into entrepreneurship through the coffee shop. So moving people from thinking like an employee to thinking like a business owner, and then through the coffee shop, they can earn some equity and become a business owner, which is cool. I have, you said, a $7 million portfolio of property. It's actually $11 million now. We just added a 200-acre bed and breakfast. It's little couples cottages. We do a 7-course gourmet dinner one night during your stay. You get gourmet breakfast delivered to your cottage door every morning. Um, so I really love hospitality. So most of my property portfolio is hospitality related, whether it's Airbnbs or bed and breakfast, that type of thing. And I think it comes back to why I show up where I show up, in the nonprofit world, but also in the for-profit world. And it's to create experiences for people that help them experience life in a richer, more fuller way. Maybe help them stretch their boundaries a little bit, stretch what they think they're capable of. That's why I teach art classes. We do stained glass and pottery classes. I teach both of those. We have other instructors too. But I love the look on someone's face when they show up for their first class and they've never done it before and they're not sure if they're going to be able to, but something in their life has like made them feel like they need to step out and take this risk.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end of the 5 or 6 weeks, whatever class it is, or even sometimes a one-day workshop, you can see in their face that they now see themselves and what they're capable of just a little differently. And
Mm-hmm.
they have a broader experience now in life. And I think that's what life's all about. So I'm always trying to, like, no matter what I'm doing, for profit, nonprofit, even with my kids, right? Like the dad conversations that I have with my kids, it's all about helping people see that where they think their limits are probably aren't really where their limits are. And if they take small, sometimes big risks that to stretch those limits, a lot of times, maybe not the first time, maybe not the second time, but if you keep trying, eventually you'll see that your limits can stretch and can become much larger than what you think.
Yeah.
So that's me in a nutshell. That's why I do everything that I do, which is
Yeah.
probably too much.
And-
If you ask my wife, it's too much stuff, but
Oh.
I love it all. And
Wives tend to say that.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine not doing any of it.
Yeah. So I want to dig into that a little bit. First off, I'm dying to find out, have you ever done the Working Genius assessment? No. Okay.
Genius. So just I need the worker assessment.
so the Working Genius was popularized by Patrick Lencioni. He's a big organizational management guy, and he figured out this system. Basically, he calls it Working Genius, and it defines what parts of work give you energy. And so it goes from having the big idea, what problems do we solve, or is there a better way of doing this, all the way down to getting it done, checking the box, getting the checklist completed, and then everything in between. I would love for you to take that assessment. I'm betting I could guess what your results are going to be, but I'll withhold that until maybe I see your results. But anyway, workinggenius.com, you can always go and do that. But so what I'm hearing in this talk is two major themes. Is you live in the world of ideas, but not just your own. You have this what appears to be this innate need to unlock ideas within other people. So like you have all these ventures. So you said you've got this coffee shop, but you didn't say anything about the coffee. The coffee shop was a means to bring people in, to share ideas, to be together. You've got this co-working space, which you didn't say anything about any of the business members or anything about who actually works in that co-working space. You talked about this is a space for people to come in, to bring their ideas to life, to explore their entrepreneurial dreams, that's the root of entrepreneurship, right? Is you've got this idea, you're going to turn it into reality via some sort of business. Even earlier in this conversation, we were talking about meetings, and you're talking about giving people an opportunity to take 2 minutes of quiet, write their ideas down on Post-it notes, and then share them with the group so that the quiet people have a voice in this discussion, and that the leader in the room doesn't just dominate the conversation and then everybody be like, well, the leader said that's what the idea is going to be, so that's obviously the one we should go with. And we could explore that all we wanted to, but it's this underlying theme of how do you create psychological safety? How do you create safe places for people's ideas to come to life? And I find that absolutely fascinating. And you do it, like if you go to jordandegree.com, on his website, he has 9 tiles on here of his various ventures. So keynotes and events. You're the director of the Nonprofit Alliance, this Real Ideas Network, which you talked about. DeGree Royal, that's that bed and breakfast that you talk about on 200 acres, I'm guessing. The Creative Adventure Lab, the Coffee Lab, the Innovation Lab, a business redevelopment area. It says right here, a 42,000 square foot redevelopment geared towards helping new ventures launch and grow in Dubuque, bringing ideas to life through people. And then studio art. You said it was stained glass and pottery, but you didn't get into any of the details of the actual art. You said this is a place for people to come, and they don't really see themselves as artists. And then at the end, their ideas have come to life. And I find that fascinating, and clearly you have absolute, just pure energy for it. And I love it. So I'm curious I'm curious about a lot of things. One, how do you find enough time to sleep at night doing all these different things? But 2, when did you discover that this was your wiring, and when and how did you just like grab a hold of that? And maybe this is a subject for another podcast. We could dig into it, but I'm curious because so many people, they don't have this, like they're not doing the thing that just absolutely brings them to life. And here you are doing like 9 of them.
This is going to be really embarrassing, Chris. I think I just realized it as you were saying it. So thank you.
You're welcome, I guess.
I think everything that I do, I'm trying to think about if this is actually true. And I think it is. So I'm saying it in the moment. I believe it's true. Everything that I do, if you're an investor of mine, don't listen to this part. I kind of stumble into it. It isn't always with this grand plan of, in 10 years, I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z. And everything like leads up to that. And I think that for me, it is because I really enjoy looking at the landscape. What are the opportunities? What is compelling to me? And how do I leverage my talent or the talents of those around me, whether it's my team or my family or my community or the board of directors or whatever it may be? How do I leverage the talent around me to help maximize that opportunity? But like you said, and a big theme in my life is, and this is why I work in nonprofit, but even in my for-profit, is the idea of people over profits and purpose over profit versus, not that profit's not important. You always have to have financial sustainability to have things continue on and create long-term impact or value. But one of the ways that I think is really important for me to get there, financial success and sustainability, is by helping the people involved with it have really amazing experiences. And whether that's volunteers, board members, employees, colleagues, or clients, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
A lot of businesses think about the client first, and they're important, but they're not the only people involved in the thing. And so if you can really like get the thing going where every person involved is creating an amazing, having an amazing experience, or at least feeling fueled by it, or learning from it, or expanding who they are and their sense of self from it, then I think, we've been talking about culture. Then I think you have this culture that is a fueling culture, not not a burning up culture, not a reduction culture. And when you can create and be involved in cultures like that, and like you said, I've got 9 project tiles, things that I'm currently working on that website. And they all for the most part are that, right? They're these fueling cultures where I can see the impact. I'm at the summit. I can look out and see the cool thing, or at least you know, I know where the summit is and I know where I'm trying to get to. And so all the little steps to get there are useful, and contributing to that overall impact. And I can see that. And so for me, again, like I said, there's some things I don't like to do, end of the month closing kind of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
um, the fact that I can, for the most part, spend my days working on a variety of different things that range across a variety of different topics, but do it in a way that creates value, monetary value, sure, but culture value and
Mm-hmm.
outcome and impact value, absolutely. That to me is what gets me through the day, and why I can stay even in this late stage of my life, why I can stay enthusiastic and energetic. It's because the work I do is so rewarding and so impactful and energizing that by going to work, for the most part, I come home more energized than when I went in. And I think for a lot of people that's not the case, and that's unfortunate. But I came to that because I was willing to take those small risks myself and move toward what I was passionate about and where I saw opportunity. I changed for my major 4 times in college because I was interested in a lot of things and I couldn't picture myself just doing one thing for the rest of my career. And so ultimately, I ended up choosing English education because I like working with kids. I like telling and hearing stories. And I like the way that those things can combine to create value. And so I also knew I could get a job anywhere in the world teaching English. I knew that I could substitute if I couldn't find a job. And so it was
Mm-hmm.
like total job security, but also flexibility. I knew I'd have 3 months off probably every summer to like pursue other things. I got a
Right.
job at this really amazing school, public school in Chicago, downtown Chicago on the South Side. Totally opened up my eyes to what education can and should be. It was a totally different model than your traditional high school. The district decided they were going to close it. They offered to transfer me to a traditional high school. And that was a big moment in my life, Chris, because the safe route would have been, yep, I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Take the
go do
transfer.
that because
Absolutely.
I've got school debt. I'm gonna go there and continue to make money and do the career thing. But
Yeah.
instead, I decided no. I had taken this pottery class at a neighborhood pottery studio, and I was like, "That's awesome! I want to do some stuff like that." And you know what? If I move into my parents' base, if I move back to Dubuque and live in my parents' basement and take this little bit of money that I've been able to save and buy some pottery wheels and rent space in a warehouse, I could probably do that. And so I did. And that was
Of
like
course you did.
that was the first risk I took like entrepreneurially, and it worked. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was just like, I mean it kind of worked. It
Yeah.
wasn't like I still had to do a
It
part-time
worked. It
teaching
worked well
job
enough
and
to get you by
I
to the
was
next
living
thing.
in my parents' basement,
Right.
not
Yeah.
ideal for a 26-year-old, um but it worked, and that kind of just was the eye opener for me that wait, I can define my own existence and what it means to do work and be productive and have impact. And I haven't looked back. It's amplified from there. And so now it's like, yeah, I'm going to do it, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. So again, it comes back to that theme of chasing and unlocking ideas and doing it through people. You said a couple times, the end of the month drudgery work of, entering the receipts. I'm with you on that. So going back to Working Genius, that's that tenacity work. I have a stack of receipts that, I'm supposed to enter into my spreadsheet for my LLC that I do through this podcast and everything. And it's just not done. I did read a thing the other day, though, that there is AI systems that will just read your receipts and build the spreadsheet for you. You can bet that I'm just going to outsource that here very, very soon. But that's that tenacity work. And, and this is why I like doing the podcast here, is because it gets me sharing ideas. My Working Genius is wonder and invention. So I love asking the big questions, which is, hence those big questions I was asking you at the start of this, and then just living in this world of ideas. And so I'm guessing the idea thing is definitely one of the things that energizes you. And that's what Working Genius is all about, is like, what is it that gives you energy? And I love that you carved a pathway for you to just pursue that energy, because so many people don't do that. And I really wish for the betterment of the world that more people would, that they would see, that they would understand this concept that all of us are wired in certain ways. There are people out there that would absolutely love taking all of your receipts and entering them into a ledger and making all the numbers work out. Like there's a reason we have CPAs, because they love that type of stuff, right? And so, but that's, I couldn't imagine, you could not pay me enough to do that. But there are some people that just absolutely love it, and they're wired that way. And I would love it if more people would take the time to understand their innate wirings and then build life around that, rather than just building life around whatever somebody told them to do. And, well, I'll just drudge this out until I hit retirement, and then I'll go do what I want, or, and so but anyway, that's a side thing. All right. I want to close this out. One last question for you. If you could leave a message for leaders, specifically in the parks and conservation world, but really leaders in general, it could be, say, a big billboard that everybody would see, or just one message that comes across not their LinkedIn feed, because you're not on LinkedIn, but you get the idea. Like, just one message that could reach out to all the leaders out there. What would it be?
I think if this is going to be the one that I think would make the world a better place.
Right, I like that.
Right away. And it comes back to something we talked about earlier in this episode. I think that if I could send a message to leaders, and if they had to do it, this would be even better. It would be, take an hour and think about how you can structure your next meeting a little differently to make it a better meeting, and to focus on the relationships of the people in the room before you focus on the challenge or the problem that you're trying to solve. That would be it.
That's good. Yeah. Oh, you're talking my language there. Better meetings. I'm going to have to build a webinar around that. Maybe I'll invite you to it, and we can geek out about that stuff. That's a good one. You're right. I mean, better meetings, better life for everyone. But that focus on relationship building before just task management, that could be immensely powerful in so many ways. Jordan, I appreciate this talk. If someone wanted to find out more about you, or learn about what you're up to, or get in touch with you, where would they go?
Everything we talked about today and more. And it's a great place to start. If anything, any of the different ventures that I have sparked your interest, or you just want to reach out, that's
all right. Yeah, that's jordandegree.com, JORDANDEGREE. Good Lord. It'll be in the show notes. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Everybody can find it there. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time. There are so many different things I would love to continue to talk about, but in the interest of your time, I'll wind this up. So everybody listening, thank you for what you do. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Wait. Don't go yet. Don't start that next episode. I've got something for you. The Parks and Restoration Better Meetings Field Guide. See, most meetings just suck, and I'm going to wage war on crappy meetings. Go to parksandrestoration.com, enter your email into the Next Level Leadership Community mailing list, and you'll get access to the free PDF download, which is the Better Meetings Field Guide. It will walk you through what meetings to get rid of, how to make the standing meetings better, and just all around get things done and not just sit there twiddling your thumbs and wondering, why did I get myself into this? The Better Meetings Field Guide from Parks and Restoration. Go to parksandrestoration.com, join the Next Level Leadership community, get the download. See you at the next episode. Take care.